Hi, I'm Suzanne Sheridan with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me Rozanne Gates and Suzanne Sheridan, co-owners and partners of the Legacy Project. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I know I missed one of them.
The Legacy Project USA.
USA.
And Legacy Masterpiece.
Okay. So you're partners in business and partners in life.
Absolutely, yes.
And tell us a little bit about what your business is about.
Well, the Legacy Project, we work with people who want to document the story of their life. And we have different ways of doing that. We do video interviews, we do audio interviews, we create beautiful photo documentary books that include archival photos. So many people have boxes and boxes of old photos, old slides in their attic, all over the house. They go crazy trying to figure out what to do with them. So we come along and we can help them organize and declutter those photos, and we can put them in a book that can be multiplied. Actually, we can make as many copies of those books as they want. So that one gorgeous, photo that you have of your grandfather from 1880 can be multiplied, many fold, if in a book, so that the family members can have that forever and ever. But the most important thing is to decide that you want to tell the story of your life and that you want to leave that as a legacy to your children, that your values that that you have learned in your life are just as important as the things that you've accumulated, over your lifetime.
Okay.
And at the very end, the end result of this whole thing is CD-ROMs inside of a book that has archival images and present-day images and possibly a video or a documentary.
So it's a little bit more than a photo album.
Oh, yes.
It's definitely more than that, because what we do is we do a dedication at the beginning of the book. The CDs are on the inside flap, so you can go, CD1, CD2, CD3, CD4, depending on how many we do. And then usually it's in chronological order, so you have the archival photos first, and then the present-day photos if they want.
Well, and it's multimedia. I mean, you have stuff on CD, then you've got the videos. So let's step back for a minute. Tell us about how you came to this work.
Well,
what are your backgrounds? We're going to go, okay, so...
I'm a photographer, and I have been a photographer for over 15 years in Westport, Connecticut, and I've been doing weddings, bar mitzvahs, individual actors' portraits, and over the years I put together books, and Rosie has always commented how beautiful they are, and then she just said to me, well, we should do something helping people document their lives, because neither I nor Rosie have the sound of our parents' voices. We made a mistake. We don't have it.
And technology is such now that not only can we make the recordings, we can keep those recordings forever and ever. Yes, they will come out. The final product is a CD-ROM, but with those memory sticks now, you can transport those files anywhere you want.
And download them.
So how long have you been doing this?
We've been doing this for 2.5 years.
Okay. You know what's interesting, Suzanne, you were talking about having your parents' voice. I mean, I've done a couple of different things with my parents. I mean, I've interviewed them. I've taken my own video camera, I have my own questions, But, I've interviewed them about not just their lives, but everything they remember about their ancestors, and not just a little bit about the family tree, but things that they remember in particular that you would never get from records if you were ever going to do genealogy.
Right. That's the most important stuff, because you can get certain things from databases, from a genealogist. We have a genealogist on staff at the Legacy Masterpiece.
In fact, it's Diane Hassan,
who's from Danbury,
who is the genealogist for the Danbury Historical Society.
Oh, you're right. There are databases, and you can go back and get certain information from birth and death records, etc. But the stories,
the quality of the life, and
the quality,
the memories, and
and see. That's the thing that the next generation is going to want to know about that person, and that what might be missing.
So Rosie, tell us about your background.
Well, I was an actor's agent for over 20 years. You probably have heard of some of my clients, Edward Norton and William H. Macy.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe Mantegna and Lynn Thigpen and Rainn Wilson and Chris Noth with the gorgeous eyes, Chris with the gorgeous eyes.
Law and Order.
Oh, yeah.
Law and Order, Sex and the City. And I sat at my desk day after day for over 20 years.
Were you in Hollywood or New York?
I was in New York.
Okay.
I was also in Hollywood, but I was mostly in New York. Interviewing, potential clients, actors, asking them a lot of pertinent questions, the same way that I ask my clients now. You know, when I go into somebody's home and we go in to capture someone's story, I have to make a personal connection with that person. That person has to feel that they can trust me as the repository of their life story.
Yeah, that's a big job.
It's a big job, but it took me. That's what I did day after day after day, was gain everyone's trust. And the most incredible thing is that a lot of times when the children listen back to the stories that their parents are telling, there are many times that they haven't heard some of those stories. And I know why. Because parents are sometimes hesitant to tell the stories that really need to be told to their children.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is? I mean, since my daughter was little, I have she's almost 15-year-old, and ever since she's little, she's always asked me, Mommy, tell me a story about when you were little, and I feel like I've told her all the interesting ones anyway, and she says, oh, you already told me that one, tell me another one.
Right.
But most parents don't want to share their stories with their kids, is that what you're saying?
What we found is that the parents have a sort of artificial wanting to look good kind of thing going on.
Oh, okay.
So when you're an objective other like us, we come in, we have no baggage, we have no emotional connection. There's a more honest connection made, and they tend to tell us things they wouldn't tell their kids. Sometimes they'll say to Rosie, "Oh, I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell my kids." But they're going to be telling.
They're going to be hearing it, right?
Yes,
and
yes. But at that moment, we
they get their guard down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, there was one woman that we interviewed who happened to live in Ridgefield, and she told me the story of when she was married, that her in-laws did not come to the wedding because they disapproved of her. And she said to me, but don't tell my children this story. I'm sitting there recording the story.
Didn't she hire you to do this?
Yes,
what the heck?
exactly.
She thinks you're going to edit it or what?
I don't know.
So what do you say in that moment?
Okay.
It's on tape.
No. No problem. I'm not going to say anything.
Just listen to this.
She personally will not say anything. But,
you already said it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing is
that's
that,
how free people feel.
Yeah.
And there is such a need for people to tell their stories. It's probably one of the greatest unmet needs that every older person has.
Well, you know what? It seems like it's so primal. I mean, throughout history, the oral tradition of telling stories, it seems like it's just a primal need.
Yes. When before written word, that's all we had.
Was the oral tradition.
And now we have the written word and oral tradition. And what happens now, unfortunately, is a lot of older people are sloughed away to the side in our society. Our culture doesn't really value them. But we were interviewing a man who's in his 90s who taught boxers in Staten Island how to box kids, how to stand their ground, how to stand up for themselves, how to box.
At the age of 96.
And he was in the room and he was very quiet. I thought, oh my God, he must be depressed. Maybe he won't say anything. She took him into the room and started talking, and it was like watering a plant. He just woke up. He became alive and animated. Yeah, because somebody was listening to him and hearing those great stories.
And when he started talking about his wife, who had passed away, he started crying. And that is something that he would never do. He's Italian. That is something he would never do in public, is to shed a tear. But with me, he opened up.
Yeah.
And it's almost like performing surgery.
Well, it's like therapy, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, you get to the heart of the matter.
Right.
And telling your story is the easiest thing for somebody to do because you're the only one who knows
You're the expert.
You're the expert. You're the only one that can tell the story.
Right.
And it's so interesting because people want to say, well, what kind of questions are you going to ask? And I say, well, you know what? First question I'm going to ask is, what's your name? I know you can answer that one.
Oh, so they get nervous about, what if I can't answer the questions about my life? There's going to be a quiz.
Yeah.
But get all my answers wrong.
One of the questions that always gets a great response is, what was your first car? And what is your memory of your first car?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because that just conjures up all kinds of
definitely
stories and memories.
Right away, I'm thinking of car talk, you know?
Our favorite radio station.
Yeah. So what advice would you give someone who wanted to start documenting their life and they didn't know where to begin?
The first
they wanted
thing,
to do it themselves.
Okay, the first thing is to decide that you want to do it. Commit to doing it. You can get out that paper and pencil and take an hour a day. Do not, as Suzanne says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Especially in our society where everybody's taking pictures all over the place, I'm sure people have boxes and boxes of photographs.
Yeah. What I say to them,
overwhelming.
What I say to them is, go into the attic and separate out the ones you clearly do not want, like ones that you don't like the way you look in or whatever. Separate the ones that aren't important, and then keep all of them in chronological order, that you do want. And that helps a great deal. Then it would be good to digitize them. That would be the second step,
So how do they go about digitizing them?
Well, they can scan them, or they can send them to a scanner, or archival things like paintings and artifacts cannot be scanned, so you have to go in, like I do, and digitize them with my camera. I take a really good camera and photograph it with proper lighting, and that digitizes the image. And then I create a book out of those digitized
Okay, so
images.
having the digitized image is better than the real photograph because you can do a lot of different things with it.
Well, the original
really
photograph could be 2 inches by 3 inches. When I digitize it, I can make it 8 by 10, and the pixels will stay intact. So bottom line, it's much better to digitize. And the books can be made then from the digital images, which is a lot easier than taking them and trying to stick them in the book.
Does it change the quality at all of the?
Makes the quality better
Yeah.
because then you can clean them up in Photoshop. You can fix the scratches. You can fix the little pinpoint holes.
Many of our clients have had photos from the late 1800s when photography really started taking hold. And so they've got photos of their great-great-grandparents, and they have that one photo that is a family jewel. And
an heirloom.
when Suzanne photographs that photograph,
then we can
that
give it to
family
everybody.
jewel is now forever. It will never be destroyed.
A
It
friend
will
of ours
always
has said,
be there.
He said, in the will I'm going to have to say this picture goes to so-and-so. Well, if you do the book, then you can have as many
Everybody
pictures
has
as you
it.
have children.
I know my
instead.
mom's designated me as the photo person, so
good.
when
You're
she
the
goes,
lucky one.
I get all the photos and I have to figure out,
Oh boy.
because I'm the organized one. I'm like, thanks, Mom. Now I have the responsibility.
Yeah.
And I
It's a
have
very
5
high
siblings.
compliment. I have 5 siblings too. Well, the hard part is going through them and figuring out what came first, what came second, And once you get that done, then it's almost like I take my lights in my studio and I do the 45-degree angle, the way you light art, and then I photograph it like that, as though it were a person.
Okay.
And that comes
So
out
you're
beautiful.
suggesting first just get everything in order.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So in a sense, you can determine what is the chronological story.
And then you can decide, do I really want that picture? Does that add anything to the story? If not, just get rid of it and put something else in there. And then you can decide how many pictures you want to put per page in your book, how big you want your book to be, And then you can decide if you want text in it. Who are those people in that photograph? That would be really good to know. You can write that on the back of the photograph and then digitize it. When you digitize it, you can just photograph those names, and then that's part of the text.
And you better have somebody there who can identify those people, because you've got all these photos and everybody says, who is that?
Yeah,
that's happened a few times.
Well, it's interesting because I came across a photo from probably late 1800s.
Yes.
And I'm not sure who it is, except it looks very much like my sister, which is really interesting.
Must be your grandmother. Great-grandmother.
I had an aunt who said that it was like a great cousin or something. But it is interesting when you go back that far and you see how it looks like some people today. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we did that with my great-grandmother. Looks just like my sister Lori.
Yes, yes.
Fascinating. So, very poignant story about the 96-year-old man. Tell us one of your other most poignant moments with a family and bringing the family together around a story or around putting together a book.
Robert Richards.
I was just going to say that we actually
we should have the book of
great.
the family. So his daughter, I'll show you this. His daughter right here hired us to help this man who's 96 tell the story of his life, and it was very important to him. And his other daughters really weren't that involved with him, but through this process, she led us into her home to photograph some of the beautiful pictures that were up on her wall that nobody else could see. And she brought forth some pictures that were from a long time ago. And everybody got together for his 96th birthday and had a beautiful party at her home. And it was beautiful. It was really great to be there, and everybody was part of the process of bringing this to fruition.
Yes,
everybody took part.
Robert came to this country in 1938. He escaped Hitler's Germany.
Wow.
Yeah. And he met his wife over here. She was also from Germany, and they got married and had their 3 daughters. Robert is still trading on the New York Stock Exchange.
And doing very well, thank you.
Every day.
Unbelievable.
Every day.
Guy has got all his
Vital
marbles.
Yes. And he did not think that he would ever have all of his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren together in one place again. That was his worry and that was his concern. So when we started this project, it was the impetus to celebrate his 96th birthday, and all of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren were there, and we got the picture of the whole family.
Under a tree, symbolizing the tree
amazing.
of life.
Oh, how wonderful.
Because everybody came around together for Robert.
So they knew that you were working on this project, and this event was an opportunity and a reason to do that.
Everyone contributed.
Yeah, it's a very moving experience to do this. As a photographer, it's wonderful working one-on-one with an actor or a model or whatever, but there's something about looking at a person who looks maybe very old and realizing that they are like a history book on legs, and that when you have an enormous amount of respect for what they've lived through, instead of looking at them and saying, oh my God, that guy's old, you have, your heart opens in a different way than anything else.
That's a really interesting way to say it, a history book on legs, because I think this is a gross generalization about our American culture, is that we don't value or revere the elderly the way other cultures, for example, like China, they revere
and the Japanese
the wisdom of our elders.
And there's so much there. I have learned so much from being with so many people who are, in their 80s and 90s.
Ruth Wilson.
Oh my God, we could name so many people, but one of our clients said, when you lose someone in your family, it's like losing the wing of a library.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, because you are a repository of information that no one else has. And only you can tell the story the way you can tell the story. And what's interesting is that for your children and the children coming after your daughter, you are the beginning of their history. You know, we don't think of ourselves as you know, the major chapter in the lives of our children, but we are.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I'm very aware that I know quite a bit about my great-grandmother. I remember my grandmother, and then I think of my daughter and then her children. By the time I have grandchildren, I will have that connection to be able to speak to that.
Yes.
And then if my daughter does her grandchildren, you know, it's interesting when you think about 7 generations.
You bet.
It's not that long, really.
No,
That's
it really isn't. And in fact, last Saturday, we were in a presentation at the Wilton Library, and the first question is, "What is your name?" Then the second question is, what is your mother's name? Then what is your father's name? How many people know the name of your father's father, your father's mother, your mother's mother, your mother's father? And it's very interesting because that's only one generation. No, it's two. It's only 2 generations. Some of the people there did not even know the names of their grandparents.
Right. It's changed from their grandparents.
Interesting.
And you know, here's another thing. I mean, I have 5 brothers and sisters, just like you do. I mean, who is going to tell my story? Am I going to leave it to them to tell my story? Because
you will not. No way.
That's not going to go. So, you know, you want to do it yourself. You get it right, first of all, and then you make yourself look as good as you can.
Right.
Because if my sister
you have to have
Patty
Rosie
told
interview,
us,
and the other stuff will come out.
Right. Because if some of my sisters interviewed me, boy, I'd look like the Wicked Witch of the West.
So that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
What about when you're dealing with all these families, and you know, families have dynamics and they have their stuff. What's been one of the more dicey moments you had?
I'm going to tell you.
I'm
going to tell you.
Okay, tell us.
One of the interviews that we did included the grandmother, the granddaughter, and the sister of the grandmother, so that was an aunt. So there were 3 people there at the table. Okay, and I did well, they started telling some family stories, and afterwards I was pulled aside and I was told, edit that out, and edit that out, because we don't want anybody hearing what we just said.
Oh, they all 3 said that?
Yeah.
They all agreed, like, whoa, we got carried away.
Because they were talking about some of the other, well, they weren't really family members. They were like ex-family members.
Excommunicated.
That's appropriate.
They were like, you know, by marriage, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And there were some comments that were flying that
Little
came out in the heat of the moment. Yeah, loose lips. Came out in the heat of the moment because suddenly I disappeared, you know.
Right, sure.
They started talking among themselves.
You're like, let me get it all down.
You know, and I sort of disappeared. But then afterwards they realized that they had sort of overstepped their boundaries in some of the things they were saying.
They were all in
consensus. I edited everything.
So that's an interesting point. So do you decide ahead of time, are you clear with them, kind of like who has the final say on the edits or no edits? Or does one person own this?
Well,
that was one person owning it, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was
whoever is the one who comes to us is the final edit person, you know.
Yeah.
Usually there's not a problem with that.
And actually that was the only time that I had to do any deleting of comments.
Like, quick, delete those out. So you do an oral history, and then you decide what are we going to keep in the recording. And
I keep everything in. Unless
everything's in.
Absolutely.
No editing.
Unless I'm specifically instructed to delete something. Everything stays in.
So do you have your set of lead questions?
Absolutely.
And then you see what happens.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now the other
because I don't like generalities. I like specifics. I'll even go to such a degree, you know, if you tell me where you live, what your address was, you know, was that on a dead-end street? You know, was it on a major throughway?
Okay.
You know, who were your neighbors?
So how many hours of transcripts do you do?
Well, if we turn it into a book, as we did with...
I'll show you one book where we did do transcriptions. This is a book that was transcribed from 12 hours of interviews.
Yeah, this was a 12-hour interview, and it took over 20 hours of transcription.
So you have the whole transcript there.
And it's not only transcribed, but Rosie went through it and made it really good so that the person reading it would understand it. So it was organized as well.
Oh,
so it may have taken another 100 hours just to organize it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this is full of pictures as well, and this is about a wonderful man.
This
book it's really like a book. It's
really,
it's really a history book.
This book is actually in the Weston Library now.
Oh, interesting. And so, where are the audio tapes that you?
I have them. No, no.
This
His
book
wife
isn't
has
big
them.
enough to fit all of them.
So they get everything.
Yes, absolutely everything.
So if somebody wanted to, so we have 2 minutes left. If somebody wanted to make their family collage or history into a book, are there some easy online references and tools that they could use?
There are. Well, first of all, you've got to write the book.
Yeah.
You have to write the book. You have to sit down.
Or get someone to write it for you.
Yeah. You can do it with a third party,
Yeah.
or you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And doing it yourself means discipline.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Means you can take a digital recorder and start talking into it.
Or use Dragon. Dragon software for your computer, and you speak it
Which
into
has
the
a price
computer,
to it.
and then it will actually write it out for you.
Well, you know what I did with my parents? I just bought them a little handheld tape recorder, and I drafted a list of questions. I said, just start talking to this. Well, whenever you feel like it, I'm not around. Just start talking into it.
That's one way to do it, and then we find that it's easier for them if it's a conversation.
Oh, yes.
So you have the list of questions, but if you speak them to them, the chances are you'll actually get something back.
It's easier.
Yeah, it's just too hard for them to sit with a recorder and do that by themselves.
There are many companies online that self-publish for people who want to self-publish.
Okay. And what are the names of a few of them?
Lulu.com, authorhouse.com.
I know iUniverse, I think, is.
Yeah, iUniverse.
There's a lot of places where you can
There are a lot of
book.
places where you can upload it, but the fact is, you have to write it.
Yeah,
like
no way around that.
There's no way around
So,
that.
ladies, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Like this is from Costco. Costco, from iPublisher. My Publisher. So it's a leather-bound book, 11 by 17. It's really 100-pound paper. Ooh. It's really amazing.
I may have to have you on the show again.
Yeah, okay, we'll come back.
So if somebody wanted to just get some tips from you, quick email?
LegacyMasterpiece.com.
Okay, great.
Info@LegacyMasterpiece.com?
Yes, info@LegacyMasterpiece.com.
Okay, thank you, ladies, for coming on the show.
Thank you,
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great being on.
I'm Susan Shainer. Until next time with Community Forum, thank you for joining us.